Okay, there we go. Hi, Flosstube, it's Diane. I have things moved around. I'm trying to figure out where everything's at. Okay, today is, what is today? March 18th, 2019, and thought I'd do an update video. Now I'm used to looking over there, and I'm going to be, anyway, what has been going on? My daughter had her port removed. I have a light thingy over there, so it might be glaring off my glasses. So maybe I should go this way just a shade. So then I won't have it off my glasses as easily. We'll try it. We'll figure this out. I am not a professional at this. If you want a professional, I don't know where to tell you to go. Let's see. My daughter had her port out the 22nd of February. Very short procedure. Everything went well. It's healing well. Her hair is growing back. Her and 3 of her friends had to postpone a trip because of all her treatments and chemo and everything. They've been able to reschedule that, and I know one of the airlines they were working with was Alaskan. I can't remember what the other airline was, but the fee to change and all of that wasn't as much as it could have been. So they were working with them. And so they have that scheduled for the end of May. And my husband and I celebrated our 27th wedding anniversary on the 14th. Not International Pie Day. Stupid. It's my anniversary. That's why I celebrate. Thank you very much. Although we really didn't do a lot. I had Bible study that night, and we didn't go out to dinner or anything. But the weekend before, my husband and I had the chance to go away, just the 2 of us, and we ended up in New Bern, North Carolina. So we flew out at we're at the airport at 4 in the morning on the 7th. And that proved to me I should not stitch at 4 in the morning, because the motif I was working on, I totally screwed up, and I did have to remove a bunch of stitches because there was a border, and yeah, I couldn't fudge it. But it was all DMC, thankfully. Or that motif was DMC. Everything else is overdyeds, so that wasn't too bad. So if you're going to stitch at that early in the morning, use DMC only. That if you would have to rip it out, you're not going to panic. But we ended up in New Bern, North Carolina. We flew out and we ended up in Baltimore for an layover, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. And then we ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we rented a car and drove down. It's usually a 2-hour drive, but we meandered, took our time. Neither one of us had been to North Carolina before, which is unusual because my husband has traveled a lot for work. So there's a lot of places he's already gone. Oh yeah, I was there, and I was there, and I was there, and it's like, well, that kind of sucks the life out of it. But he had never been to North Carolina, so it was kind of fun for the 2 of us to explore a little bit. So we ended up in New Bern, North Carolina. And yes, you are reading that correctly. New Bern, North Carolina was established in 1710. So, 300 years old. So we got there Thursday. How we ended up there is we wanted to visit our Marine, who's in the area, not in New Bern itself, but in the area. And we wanted a bed and breakfast rather than a hotel, so that's how we ended up in New Bern. He had training late on Thursday, so we didn't see him then. And then on Friday he had training till 4 in the afternoon. So we ended up going to the Tryon Palace in New Bern, North Carolina. And what is really cool is I grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota. So Wild Bill Hickok and the Wild West and Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, a lot of Lakota Sioux history, stagecoaches, pioneer history. Moving to Minnesota, there's a lot of pioneer history also. A lot of, not really mountain men, but that explorer type of, with all the hides on and everything. A lot of German history and Scandinavian and some Civil War. But on our drive down, we ended up in I want to say Smithfield, North Carolina. It could be Smithville. I should have looked that up. A little deli there called Gotham Deli. It's really good food. Well, that is where General Sherman learned that General Lee had surrendered at Appomattox. That was not where General Lee surrendered, but where Sherman heard about it. And so I was like, oh yeah, Civil War. Minnesota was involved in the Civil War to a point, but it's just a different period of history. And then you go to a place like Tryon Palace, Revolutionary War here in America. It was even more interesting. The Tryon Palace was finished in 1770, and the Tryon Palace was the original colonial capital. George III got tired of the governor of North Carolina kind of being nomadic, not sure where exactly he would be. So he asked William Tryon to go and make, pick a spot and build a place for the governor to be. And so this is what they built. The main building. So the upstairs was the residence of the governor and his family, and downstairs is where government business was carried out. So I'm looking at this backwards. You go in the front door, yeah, and you go this way, because we toured it. You go this way into kind of an office area, and then behind here is a legislative room where they held kind of a Senate kind of committee. And there was a formal dining room on the back side of the house on this side, and then you come around and there's a butler's pantry. And then you go up a staircase. This is on the tour. So you go up a staircase and you see all the rooms upstairs, the bedrooms, and then you go down the servant's staircase and you end up down here where the butler and the housekeeper lived, and the root cellar, wine cellar, that kind of thing. This is this one is the kitchen office. So they had the kitchen, secretarial office, the kitchen area, the scullery was behind, and the laundry, the wet laundry, and the top floor the other servants lived, the cook, the maids, the male servants, and the dry laundry was all up here. And then there's a third part. But you can't see it on here. You can see it on this picture. Here is the stable office. This was finished in 1770, and so that's the period of time that they froze. And they know that because when Governor Tryon was ordered to go to New York State, or New York Colony, he had a very detailed manifest of what furniture he had, because he took all his furniture. And so they have all the manifests from that. And the governor after him, Martin, they have his manifests on what he had. And so when the Tryon Palace burned down, this residence and the kitchen office burned entirely to the ground. The stable office here existed for 150 years, and they did nothing with it. And then this is the grand staircase. Isn't that beautiful? It's cantilevered, meaning there's no center post. It's all, and this is the legislative room. So the governor would sit here, would sit here in this grand chair, and then people would they'd discuss things. And King George III, his wife, Queen Charlotte, who beat me by one child. She had 15 children. So, and then, who's the other guy? I can't remember the other guy. Tryon, the offices. So the kitchen office and the residence burned down in 1798. and the stable office was still standing. And at one point in time, they used this brick from the stable office. They used it to make kind of apartments. But then they found in the early, yeah, it looks very different. This is what it is. This is what it was used as. They found the original blueprints of John Hawkes, the architect, and they found the original footings of the buildings, and then with the stable office they could get all the color from the brick and all those little details you can't get on plans, so they rebuilt it. And so you can tour it today. And so the year that they have all of the furniture, they were able to collect the period appropriate furniture or have it rebuilt, and clothing and all the books in this main library here, because they had those manifests, so they were able to go and get books from England that literally would have been a copy of what was on the shelf. And then part of the grounds is the Stanley House here. So my husband and I toured that. And this has been moved twice, so this is not its original place. But in 1791, George Washington actually slept here. And that was kind of cool to stand in the room that George Washington actually slept in. It wasn't the exact furniture, but just to kind of interact with that type of history. And it was also, the Stanley House was also General Burnside's first residence in New Bern during the Civil War. But then he found out that there were these nuns from Germany that had been persecuted, and they came over. So Burnside vacated it, and it let the sisters stay there, and it became a convent. And then there was a hospital right next to it or near it for soldiers that were injured in the Civil War, both Union and Confederate, and the sisters took care of them. And the Dixon House here. Now, there was a hurricane that went through North Carolina in September 2018. There are still people that are not in their own homes. They're displaced because their homes are still being repaired. And the Dixon House and the main palace also took damage, and this was not available to tour. And this, you could see some damage in the building here, and there's a lot of gardens back here. They were not in bloom, full bloom, but we weren't able to go into the Dixon House or the Robert Hay House, which are all part of the Tryon Palace. And like the grounds here in the summertime, the gardens, they weren't in full bloom. But it was really fascinating to see. And in the History Center, there's a piece of needlework right there. So that one, it's a rare North Carolina sampler stitched by a young New Bern girl in 1816. Matilda Catherine Hall. New Bern. So she finished it in 1814. No, she finished in 1816. January. The January date is. But really, a little town there with a lot of history. Yeah, the North Carolina History Center. And so this clock is really cool. That's an over 2,000 pound clock, and it actually functions. Designed by Seth Thomas in 1910. And that was pretty fascinating. And the Pepsi Family Center, kind of an interactive center, that was also damaged in the hurricane, and we were not able to go into there. But it's a fascinating little town. I encourage you to, if you're in the neighborhood, in that neck of woods, go check them out. But we walked, so we did that Friday, saw our Marine, took him out to dinner, and then Saturday we walked along. There's two rivers. There's the Trent River to the east of New Bern, at least the historic New Bern. And so we walked along there, the river walk there on Saturday, and then we took a trip and we drove down. We drove north and then drove down the coast. Kept trying to get to the beach, and all these public accesses had no parking, no walking, no like, how do you make that public access? There was one place, but to be honest, I was like, I am not getting out of the car. This place looks sketchy. But we did get a chance to get out of the car. We parked legally, got out of the car, and walked down this boardwalk. And so we were able to look from the barrier islands, not toward the Atlantic Ocean, but toward the mainland. And it was beautiful. We drove down, hung out with our Marine. It was interesting to see him in his natural environment with his buddies. And then we took them out to dinner. Although our Marine ended up paying for our dinner. He was not supposed to do that. He went to the bathroom, but he really cornered the waitress and, okay, no, my bill, my mom's, and my dad's. And so I said, you didn't have to do that. He goes, well, I learned from the best. We did pick up his buddies' meals, though. And it was really good food. It was probably the best meal we had while we were on our trip. And then Sunday, so then we went back to bed and breakfast. Sunday we walked the north of where we were at, and that's the Neuse River. So we walked along there, and we picked up some memorabilia, because in 1898, Brad's drink became available. And we all know Brad's drink as Pepsi-Cola. In New Bern, North Carolina. And the place that we stayed is called the Hannah House. And on their website they say we're steps from the historic downtown. They were not kidding. They were right there. But it was interesting to see all of the damage from that hurricane still 6 months after. So I've been collecting keychains when I travel. So the Tryon Palace. And these are guard turrets. And then when we were on our layover, we got a Baltimore, Maryland, and this guy turns. So I got that keychain in my collection. And my goal, particularly with this one, is to take this part off. This does not work well as a keychain. This always unscrews, because I had another one that has a Lincoln penny in it from Kentucky, and it doesn't stay on your keys. But removing that, and then scissor fob. This one I haven't decided, a scissor fob or how I'm going to display that. And then, oh, I'm going to get one thing. Hold, please. Okay. And then, of course, I got, yep, on my keys. Because I do like to drink Pepsi. I'm drinking less now than I have in the past. But, and then I got this little notebook, the Tryon Palace. And then it's showing the sailboats of the harbor. And when they had the hurricane, I guess there's a hotel in the area. They had water up to their 3rd floor. That's a lot of water. Not quite sure exactly what this is representing here, because it's not exactly on the grounds. But yeah, very cool little town. Nice people. Oh my, it's just a notebook. Really, really nice people. And I got this for my daughter. So they have the historic clock tower here, and there's a lot of churches and government buildings, because New Bern was the first colonial government building. And then when North Carolina became a state, it was the first state capital until the state capital moved to Raleigh. So a lot of history in that little town. But for my trip, I made myself a bag. I showed a bag I made for my mom in my Quilting Like a Mad Woman video, whatever number that is. So you'll have to go look at that. But I made one for myself. So I have a pocket here, zip lined. I got my zipper so even it doesn't want to open up on me. And then place for your water bottle. And it worked great for this water bottle to go in here. And then on the back, got a pocket all the way across, travel strap, magnetic closure, and on the inside, you've got a divided pocket here that's also zipped and lined. And then you've got this pocket, a little pocket for a pen, clip for your keys so you don't have to dig in the bottom of your bag to find them. And a pocket here, and a pocket here, and this is a pleated pocket. I did not have black Velcro, otherwise I'd have put black Velcro on, but I thought, you know what, it's for me. I don't care. And then you can have an open bag, or you can pull this up and zip it closed, which I did both. And the fabric, I use fabric handles. There's some different ideas on the pattern. The fabric here is this red, and these are actually stars. And then what may look like stripes to you is actually script, the words to the Star Spangled Banner in, I can't tell if it's black. I think it's a really, really dark blue. But, and then the contrast is this one. I thought it kind of looked like fireworks. And then on the lining, because I like the inside of my bags to be light, so when you're looking down in them, it's easier to see. It's just a sepia rose pattern. I think these are Henry Glass collection for Benartex, I think. But if you want that pattern and information on it, look at that video, because I put it in the description box of my November 2018 Quilting Like a Mad Woman video. I don't remember the number. So there were no stitching stores in the area, and I looked to see if there were any quilt or kits of any kind. I didn't see any. Doesn't mean they weren't there, I just didn't see them. But on the way back to the airport, so Sunday we went down, saw our Marine, said our see you laters, ate at a restaurant, took them out to dinner again. Pricey restaurant. It wasn't good food. I like shrimp, and I'm thinking, oh, Atlantic Coast, shrimp. It wasn't good. It gave me a stomachache. But and then Monday, we just took our time and we took a different route back to Raleigh. And my husband said, well, are there quilt shops in the area? And there was one in New Bern, but they don't open on Mondays. And so I looked online, I'm like, there's got to be one in Raleigh. And sure enough, I found one. It's called Wish Upon a Quilt. And it's like 5 minutes from the airport. So I picked this up. This is a layer cake, so they're 10-inch squares. And these are the other fabrics in there. In my area, they don't do a lot of pre-cuts at the quilt shops. I don't know why. But my husband gifted me these Scrap Crazy 8 templates for Christmas. And what you do is you take a 10-inch square and you lay these out. There's a little grid here that shows you how to lay them out. And you cut them, and then you kind of mix up the pieces. So you take all the part A's, and so this is, A is the full, B stops here. So you take all the A's and all the B's, all the C's and all the D's, and then you sew them back together, and it becomes an 8-inch block, but then you kind of make a crazy quilt this way. So that's what I'm planning on doing with this. I've been looking at some pre-cuts online, and then she had so many. Oh, beautiful. It's a cute little shop. And I wanted to get some fabric to kind of commemorate, yeah, we were in North Carolina, and thinking something that I wouldn't find in Minnesota. And I found mermaids on seahorses. Isn't that cute? Mermaids on seahorses. And coral. And then for the lining, seahorses. Oops, I think that's upside down. Nope, that's right side up. So following Suzette, the Primitive Stitchers pattern, that's what I plan on doing with those. And then they had this quilt on the wall. It was so cute. And it turns out it's a panel, and they cut the panel apart and then, you know, quilted around it and everything. And so they had a couple of different panels, and this one is the Wild and Whimsy panel. So there's all these animals, kind of tongue-in-cheek on some of them. So let me show you them. My plan is to cut the squares and then make project bags. As in, I would end up putting another piece of fabric around it to make it big enough for a garbage bag. That this says, I eat garbage and I like it. It's a raccoon. How does my hair look? And this one, what the fox? And this one, hey you. I've got your pack. And bear with me. There are 12 of them. Sometimes life stinks. Doesn't that remind you of like Flower from Bambi? Cute little skunk. Owl will if you will. So I'll if you, yeah. Play on words. Look sharp. Hedgehog. Or it could be a porcupine. It's probably a porcupine. Let's go nuts. Oh dear. And this one's my favorite. Well, damn it. That one's my favorite on this panel. And then this is the panel that I saw first. And so I'm gonna show you, I mean, I like all of them, but I want to keep my favorite one to last. So all you cat lovers are gonna go, uh-huh. I do what I want. Be yourself unless being a unicorn becomes an option. I have irritable owl syndrome. Right? Yep. I quack myself up. Feed me and tell me I'm pretty. And then everyone calm down. I've goat this. What the fox? Sorry, the selvage is kind of weird on this. Living large, the elephant. And this one, in America, everything is possible. You bet giraffe. Ears to you. And this one's my favorite. Go pig or go home. So my plan is to make those into project bags. This is going to be a long one again. Oh well. So is life. And then, before I left, when I was getting the material for the project bag, I picked up this one to make a project bag out of. Land of Liberty, all different directions, brave, honor, duty, and pair it up with the stripes. And then I have this one. So much love. I just thought it was cute, and I got it in red too. And then this would be the contrast. So that's my new sewing stuff that I'm going to do. Yesterday I spent time cleaning out my closet that well, my husband and I have our clothes in there, but I also have my sewing, stitching stuff in there. Put up some shelves and stuff. Now I need to go through every box and really, you know, get errant floss where it needs to go. But I think I'll stop this one and then I'll do part 2. See you soon.